On those websites, there's, and I think it's on one of my slides, there's a, no, I took it off. There's plenty of surveys, little surveys to do, and you can check. They don't keep the information, but you can tick away. I felt this sometimes, never, all the time over the last 4 weeks, and you can get a little bit of an idea of perhaps how you're experiencing depression, or how your mate is experiencing depression. Because when we deal with our stuff, when we break the silence, when we do what is needed to do for us to walk into health, and that's either us ourselves or for us to walk with our mate, our friend, our loved one into health, we can explain these things. Like, we can have this in our mind, but this is the enthusiasm. Life is worth living. I think one of the things that we must, and I said it earlier, about the courage, it takes, people have said, I spoke out in Dalby on the weekend, and a lady's friend's son had suicided. And then she was just sharing, because when we ran the seminar, we did a little bit on suicide, and we always encourage people to, if they don't want to partake, you walk outside. And I was talking with her while my friend ran this part, and she, oh my goodness, talk about suicide in the family, and you would have talked about how it can be in the families. And she said, Susan, I hear so many times people say, oh, it takes courage to kill yourself. She said, it takes courage to live every day when you don't want to live every day. And I think for you who are experiencing depression, it's not a cliche. I want you to know that I believe it takes courage. It takes courage. And we want to affirm this in our mates. We want to affirm this in our friends and in our loved ones. It takes courage also to come alongside somebody in a depressed state, because it's jolly hard work. It's jolly hard work. But to not do it, to end your life, or to not seek treatment, when we go back to the characteristics that were experienced before and how hopeless we can feel, we would miss out on life. We'd miss out on the joys that come, seeing a sunset, seeing the kids play, having a picnic, experiencing our joy and laughter, dreaming about our future. Depression has robbed too many of this. One of the other things that I talked about earlier with the, and I want to just go back to it, was the uncomfortable. And I'm just going to get back to it here. Being okay with the uncomfortable. Just to give you a couple of little strategies. One thing we tend to do, you wouldn't, but I know one of your mates would do this, so I'll give you the information for your mate. In awkward moments, we'll often do really dumb jokes, or we'll offer like a cliche, she'll be right. When we talk about grief, I don't know if you've experienced or heard some of the dumb things people say around grief. What happens with us? We don't know what to say. We get this anxiety in us through this uncomfortableness, and we blurt out just anything to save me from this situation. So, and honestly, I was the master of dumb things. So I'm speaking to you about me, not at you. But what I have learned, and what I'd love you to learn, is that sometimes there's no better gift to give somebody in those uncomfortable moments than your silence. Silence. If a person isn't depressed, and I have perhaps somebody in my counselling room, and I just offer a bit of a silence. I don't know if you've been with somebody who doesn't talk very much and you feel a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes you just start saying things. So in a counselling environment, it's good to offer a silence because people fill the gap. In a situation where you're meeting one of your mates and they have depression, when you know that they don't have much motivation to speak, when you know they've got this sense of hopelessness and no joy, they actually don't give a stuff about the silence or about you feeling uncomfortable. So they don't notice that you feel uncomfortable. So if we can just sit with it, and I said before, learn to not let my uncomfortableness keep me from joining with them in this. So yeah, I just really wanted to highlight that become comfortable with the silence. Try it at home. If you're a talker, try being somebody that talks a little bit less. You just may provide a little bit more space for someone else. And when we are walking with people in depression, their space is often quite narrow. We talked about the fact that the world feels like it's caving in. We feel lonely and isolated, so our world becomes quite small. What can we do to come into that space in a way that is not intrusive, in a way that lets them know we're coming alongside them, we're not sort of taking over? And then lastly, so there is the checklist on there. Beyond Blue has a checklist. There's others on your handout that also have checklists. The Are You OK website, it's actually, if you haven't been on it, it's quite good. It even gives you little strategies for conversations. It gives you different strategies for different environments that you can click on and get what they call a toolkit. So that can be very helpful for you. Also, you've got some phone numbers there. And that's actually the end of my talk.